Hello, everyone. Welcome to MarketBeat Monday. We have a lot to dive into today. The market kind of surprising a lot of analysts, a lot of people today. After all of the conflict over the weekend, a lot of people were expecting a big drop in the market to start the week. And it's doing a little bit of the opposite. Here to join us today with more on what is happening in the market moves is MarketBeat analyst Chris Markoch. Chris, thanks for being here today. Thomas is off today, having some fun with his family this summer. So it's just me and Chris today. We have a lot to cover, Chris. So let's dive right in
Right.
to kind of the surprise start to the week. I think
Yeah.
everyone expected a down market today.
Yeah, that certainly seemed to be the general sentiment that the market was going to go down, and they thought that it was going to be because oil was going to lead the way. In terms of, they thought oil was going to be up and the general market was going to be down, and actually it kind of flipped on its head. Oil finished the day down, and the market finished the day up. And I think you kind of got a little bit of a sense that last night the futures market was down last night, but it didn't look like the market was cratering at all. And so that's when I first started thinking, okay, maybe tomorrow's not going to be as bad. And then even going into the pre-market, the losses were small, and it was like, okay, this might not be too bad of a day. And then as you saw going throughout the day, it just seemed like the market started gaining more and more momentum.
Yeah, I've got the heat map pulled up right now, and you see mostly green. And if it's red, just a small losses in some areas.
Right.
It looks like energy maybe did the worst today
Correct.
of all the sectors, but in general, really doing quite well. And even if we go back to energy, Chris, I think the oil conversation is interesting because, like you said, oil. Was not doing well over the weekend. People were expecting some major losses there.
Right.
And today, oil doesn't look as bad as people thought it would be.
Well, actually, Bridget, I'm sorry, maybe I misspoke, but let's flip that. A lot of people over the weekend were expecting oil to soar, and the reason why was because they thought Iran was making some rumblings about closing the Strait of Hormuz, which would have been detrimental to them, but it would have also been detrimental to the United States and other countries that rely on that strait for passage of oil tankers and such. That didn't happen. It doesn't look like it's going to happen. And that reversed the trend. So now oil, instead of going up as people expected, oil started going down. And so, like I said, the oil markets went down today, but then the rest of the market seemed to get that risk on sentiment, and everybody just kind of jumped in and said, okay, it's time to buy again.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is the opposite of what everyone
Right.
expected. Like you said, oil going down instead of up, which is some people were saying, wait for oil to be $100 a barrel again with this
Right.
conflict going on, and that's not what we're
Exactly.
seeing today anyway. We're still early in this, so we're going to dive into lots of different sectors right
Sure.
now. I love to see all the comments coming in already. Thank you all for being here and joining us. I love to see the suggestions you have of stocks you want to cover. I see the suggestion about talking about HIMS. We'll definitely get to that one. Thanks for all the other comments coming in about stocks that you want to hear about. We'll cover as many as we can. We do have a list of a few that we want to talk about, and we're just going to get right to it. We're going to go right
Sure.
to the defense sector. Chris, this is the
Yeah.
area that was kind of a no-brainer today. Everyone thought defense, given all this conflict happening, defense is going to be where the biggest gains are happening. Is that what we're seeing right now?
Yes and no. So you and I were talking about this before we went on, and like stocks like Lockheed Martin, for example. I'm looking at the heat map. It basically finished flat for the day, but it was up earlier today. It was so there was kind of a that the trade was very much risk on when it came to Lockheed Martin very early in the day, and it's sort of fading at the close. Uh, my guess is that some of that just had to do with as we went throughout the day, there was the news that Iran did launch some missiles at our military base in Qatar. And at that time, that we were able to block all those missiles from coming in. So there was no big. So at this point, as far as we know, there were no casualties there. There was no damage. And it seems that Iran's retaliation is either over, or if it's not over, it's going to be very muted. And that would mean that perhaps the U.S. also is not going to do anything in retaliation. So that would be that would be bearish for the defense stocks.
Yeah, there's been a couple of names in defense to talk about too. The Lockheed Martin, like you
Right.
said, the biggest one out there. I want to just pull up the chart quick for RTX because that's another company
Right.
that a lot of people look to with defense to say, how's this going right now? And that one, like, it's had a really strong year for
Oh,
sure. But like you
absolutely.
said, in the recent last few days, it was up and then down again, much like Lockheed Martin. And so
Yep.
while people are expecting these stocks in the defense sector to see a big boost, it's not quite happening yet, but it might get there. We have been talking about defense on the channel quite a bit because it's what
Right.
people are interested in right now. It's really the bullish market sector right now is what's happening in defense. We had
Right.
a really interesting video on drones this week, so we're going to get to some drone names that some of our viewers wanted to hear about. Let's get to a defense name that maybe is quite a bit smaller than the RTX or Lockheed Martin. Let's talk about Kratos.
Yeah, so this is a defense and security play. Um, it was kind of flat today. It didn't do much of anything, and it hasn't actually done a whole lot for the last month. But when you start going, well, actually, I'm sorry about that. When it hasn't done much over the last week, but in the last month, it's up about 20%. In the last 3 months, it's up about 40%, and year to date, it's up about 64%. This is a company that does mission critical products, services, solutions. So you're talking about their products work in areas like space and satellite and cybersecurity. And gee, what sectors have we been talking about lately? Space, satellites, cybersecurity, and those are areas that are going to be in particular focus beyond anything that goes on between the U.S. and Iran. So I think that's the long-term bull story for Kratos. You and I were talking about this before we came on, and I said, in my opinion, it's up about 68%. You look at the chart, though, it's a nice chart. It's been a strong chart. There does look like there's a little consolidation happening, especially like within the last month. It did spike a little bit. It spiked today, but it dropped back later on today. So it was kind of following the rest of the defense stock. So it's going to be kind of interesting to see if that level where it closed today around $43, if that is the level of resistance that seems to be there, because prior to today, the stock did look like it was kind of consolidating a little bit. It certainly got the catalyst this morning, and now it's come back a little bit. So it'll be interesting to see what the stock does from here.
Absolutely. And I don't want to get off of defense without talking about one of your favorite companies, something we talk about on the channel all the time, and that's
Right.
Palantir. eHelp, you wanted to hear about this. Of course, we're going to talk about Palantir when we talk about defense. This is one of the defense plays that's still up, and it's just been going up. Palantir's had such a crazy year, but to see that it's just continuing to get even higher is a little wild for Palantir investors.
Yeah, it's a stock that again continues to defy a lot of explanation. So this was a stock that it's kind of been had a wild ride today. It shot up at the open. The first hour of trading, it was up strongly. Then it dropped, and it was one of the worst performing stocks. And then it rallied a little bit. So it basically kind of ended the day flat. But again, this is a stock that if we're talking about defense and we're talking about the U.S. and defending not only itself but defending Israel and defending Western values, Palantir is going to be involved in that mix somewhere, and that certainly is showing up.
I think one follow-up question is Palantir seems to be holding fairly close to that 140 range where it reached that new all-time high. You know, it's going below in the 130s
Right.
for sure, but still staying fairly close. Is it a good sign that it's sustaining this level for at least a few weeks now?
Oh, I think so. I mean, the stock does show signs of it's trying to consolidate a little bit, and that usually means that the stock's it sort of looks like right now there's kind of just a general stalemate between the Bulls and the Bears, and it could go one way or the other. But generally, what you've seen with Palantir after these periods of consolidation will be a move to go higher. I don't think that's coming for the stock until their earnings report, which I think happens. I think that happens the beginning of. Let me see here. beginning of July, beginning of August. So the beginning of August will be Palantir's next report. I don't know if you're going to see much of a catalyst for the stock before then. But again, as events play out, there might be something. But the stock's forming a nice chart right now. It's a nice consolidating chart. Doesn't give anybody any reason to sell. Doesn't necessarily give a huge reason to buy. But events like what happened over the weekend, certainly those are going to be bullish catalysts in the short term.
This is something we hadn't talked about pre-show, Chris, but one of our commenters brought this up. Doridio, I think that's how I say your name, brought up the Ives ETF, I believe. This is interesting. We've talked about Dan Ives on the show before, but this looks fairly new. Do you know anything about this, Chris? I've got the chart pulled up too.
So actually, Bridget, I just found out about this late last week because one of our writers at MarketBeat wrote about it. And I had no idea that it was even a thing. But so I guess you'd say it launched last week. And of course, everybody's looking at it because it's got Dan Ives' name attached to it. And, you know, it looks like it launched, it got up to around $26 a share, a little over $26 a share. It's come down a little bit since then. It's around $26 per share. Well, no, it's still about $26. It's went from like $26.30 to $26.10. So the chart on MarketBeat makes the drop look a little bit more dramatic than what it is. But I suspect that this is an ETF that's going to perform pretty well. Again, it's got Dan Ives' name attached to it. You look at the holdings here, and you're going to just see it's sort of a broad cross section of the technology sector. Certainly some of the names that he likes very much. So I expect it's going to do well, but it's early, and it's always kind of interesting when a fund like this opens to see where it's at. It's almost like a stock that's IPOing. You just, you're going to want to watch it. You're going to be, pay attention to it. I don't know if I would be going all in on it right now, but it's certainly one to watch.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up in the comments and in the chat today. That's an interesting topic to talk about. Well, I want to switch gears. Actually, we still have the drones to talk about really quick because this is an interesting topic. One of our most popular videos last week was all about drones. We had the CEO of Dragonfly Drones on, which is a small cap drone company, talking about how these smaller companies are really getting a lot of interest right now, largely because the warfare of the future is all about drones and airstrikes and unmanned vehicles. And so there's some interesting names in there. I know one theory is that some of the bigger names, the Raytheons, the Lockheed Martin, even Boeing, these different companies that already are big players could have their own drone sectors, but these smaller companies seem to be doing pretty well too. So we had the Dragonfly. If you haven't watched that video, go take a look at that one. It's a really in-depth look at that company and really the whole drone market as a whole and what kind of big catalysts they're seeing right now. But let's talk about some of the names, Chris, that came out from that video of stocks that people wanted to hear about. It was really interesting. Let's start with RedCat. Tell me a little bit about this one.
Okay, so RedCat is sort of it's a picks and shovel play for the drone industry. It provides products, services, and solutions that drone companies need. And the stock is doing. It's down about 44% this year, but in the last 3 months, it's up about 32%. So it's making a recovery. And you look at you extend the chart out for 1 year, and the stock's up over 600%. So this is one that's on investors' radars. One of the reasons why it's been down this year, Bridget, or in the last year to date, I should say, is the company had to do an equity offering, and that means they had to raise more cash, and that tends to be dilutive to shareholders. The good news is that's in the rearview mirror, and so now investors can concentrate on the stock growing because the company's cash position is better, and that just means that they're going to have enough cash to keep doing what they do. The downside of companies like this, and Red Hat's a company it's only got like a $661 million market cap, is they just don't have a lot of money and they're not profitable right now. And so it's constantly got to be raising money to keep their operations going. They did that at the start of the year when the stock was very high and the stock plummeted. And now investors are getting back in with that equity offering in the rearview mirror.
It does feel like analysts are bullish on this company and many of these smaller drone companies. The analyst consensus price targets show some decent upside for this company.
Yeah, sure does. We're now, again, these are small companies, tiny companies. They aren't covered by that many analysts, but right now, the consensus price target is $13, which would be 80% upside. And, that's a possibility. Again, when you start saying that, would be putting it just about 10% below its all-time high that it made to start the year. And I think that there's a reason that it can get there. Again, you've got that equity offering out of the way, so investors aren't focusing on that right now. They can start focusing on, what are earnings going to look like? Is there a path to profitability? The company needs to start generating revenue. I guess they are generating revenue, but that revenue needs to continue to grow, and I think it will, because this is, again, this is a growing sector of not just the defense sector, but technology in general.
Yeah, we've got one more small drone company to talk about. This is from comments in our videos throughout the week. I read all of your comments, guys, and I do write them down to talk about on these lives. And so I want to get to this one other name, and then I'm going to dive into some of the companies that you're mentioning right now. HIMS, we're getting to it. It's going to be an interesting conversation. So Chris is going to look some stuff up on that too in just a second. But first, let's get to this last drone-related stock on our list, and that is AMPX. Dive into that one, Chris.
Yeah, so this is Amprius. I don't know if we're pronouncing it correctly, so forgive us if we do. We know we've got people that are paying attention to how these things are pronounced. So I think it's pronounced Amprius Technologies. So this is a company that they do ultra high energy dense lithium ion batteries, and one of the core industries for them is the drone industry. Analysts are really bullish on the company. It's trading as a penny stock right now. We should bring that up. It's only at $3.46 is where it closed today. Let's see. It's up about 24% year to date, but it's been down about 8% in the last week. Analysts have a consensus price target of about $9.50. So that's a massive upside. And it's covered by about 7 analysts. So that's pretty good, especially because this company's only got a $408 market cap. So this $408 million market cap. So that's even a smaller market cap than RedCat. 80% of the company's revenue is coming from non-tariff related countries. So that's very good. That's another bullish sign for the company. The concern here is the opposite of Red Hat. The concern here is that the company has about $48.4 million of cash on their balance sheet as of their last earnings report. However, during that earnings report, the CEO said that the company is going to be burning about $2.5 million to $3 million a month over the next year. That means, if you're doing the math, if that goes to the high end of the range, that's $36 million. And again, you've only got $48.4 million in the bank. So that means the company's likely going to have to do an equity offering. And that tends to be dilutive to shareholders. Not saying that is going to happen, but it's likely to happen because, again, if I'm looking at the company, they're growing revenue. They're growing revenue strongly year over year, but they're not profitable yet. So again, that suggests that, yeah, they're probably going to have to do that equity offering, and that's going to be dilutive. So if you're looking to get involved, you're going to want to keep that and take that into account, and probably think about this stock with a longer time horizon than you were thinking, or you might want to be looking at it as more of a short-term trade than you might have been thinking.
All right, that's a good look into drones and the defense sector. We really dove into that because that's what people are really interested in right now, and that's where a lot of the catalysts are happening. There's one other name to talk about before we get to HIMS and Path and some of the other names that people are
Sure.
commenting on in the chat. So thank you for all the suggestions, everyone. I don't want to move on to those until we talk about Tesla because Tesla had quite a big day on this robo-taxi announcement today. Let's dive into what that stock did today.
Well, as you said, Tesla had a really good day today, and it's been looking for one. Stock's been up about 40% in the last 3 months, which actually might surprise some people who don't pay attention to it on a daily basis. And it was up but it was down for the month until really today. And then today it really shot back up. And the reason for that is because they had the robo-taxi launch. And from all accounts, the launch went very well. The launch was very well received by consumers. And now it's just going to be kind of a question of where does Tesla fit in with Waymo and the other autonomous services. We'll see. This is becoming a thing. Maybe it's not something I notice in my smaller town area, but certainly in the bigger cities and in other countries, autonomous driving is becoming a big deal.
Yeah, and I'm looking at our headlines tab on the stock page, and I think that's really what led to this big boost for Tesla today. Just lots of headlines coming through about all of the talk about their new launch. It's really just in Austin for now, it sounds like. But I think any news is good news, and any catalyst for getting people interested in Tesla again, seeing more potential earnings, and really seeing this plan that the company's had for a long time finally starting to pay off is, I think, some good news.
Yeah, you're right, Bridget, because, again, we've talked about this in the channel. I know I've talked about it. I know Thomas has said the same thing. The long-term bull case for Tesla is you have to view it as more than a car company. And what was starting to happen in the last 3 months, especially with Elon Musk, his attention being sidetracked, is that a lot of people were saying, yeah, but when are we going to start seeing these other things in autonomous driving? When are we going to start seeing these things in Optimus? When are we going to start seeing these other things that everybody says Tesla has? Well, this is proof that all the while these things have been developing, and now you're starting to see the fruit of that come out, and it's bullish for Tesla.
Yeah, absolutely. We had one other smaller cap company to talk about in robotics, and this is AVAA. This is something some of our commenters in the week wanted to hear about. So let's talk about AVAA a little bit. What is this company, and what's their stock story?
You're talking about AEVA, right?
Yes.
AVAA Technologies. So this is a company that actually would be kind of the asymmetric play to Tesla, because this is a LiDAR company, and as people that are very familiar with the autonomous driving space would know, that's one of Tesla's differentiators is they do not use LiDAR in their autonomous vehicles, but a company like Waymo does. And AVAA, they are in that LiDAR space. The stock has been on a tear this year. It's up over 470%. It's over 949% over the last 12 months. And it's been up over 70% in the last month. Now, today it dipped, let's see, in the last 5 days, it's down about 1%. And today it did okay. Let me see what it did today.
It looks like it had a quick,
Yeah, today it basically matched the gain of Tesla from a percentage basis. It was up about 8% today. So I think right now, that's kind of what you're seeing with Tesla now being in the arena. You're going to see that's going to be kind of the debate going forward is the LiDAR technology and the companies that use that going to win, or is it going to be Tesla going to win? Is it going to be a split decision? But either way, that's the play with AVAA. And, once again, this is a fairly tiny stock. It's got a $1.5 billion market cap, so it's not a micro cap, but it's still a small cap stock. Investors have to be concerned there about some some volatility. And it's one thing to note that it's right now it's trading about 2 times higher than the consensus price target.
Yeah, I had pulled that up earlier. I think that stat is interesting and concerning for investors if you're looking at just getting into this stock. I don't know if
Right.
this new high is the time to be getting in, but it is one to watch because it's been on such a run this year.
Yeah, something that they're going to want to watch there is the short interest. So short interest in the stock is actually down in the last 30 days. It's down about 10%, but it's still about 11% of the float. So what does that tell you? It tells you that a lot of the growth in the stock recently, maybe it may have been some short covering, but those short sellers may come back in and start attacking the stock. And again, when you're dealing with small cap stocks, this frequently happens. You get a lot of traders on both sides of the trade.
Yeah, absolutely. All right,
Yep.
we are going to dive into some of the names that you guys have been sharing in the chat. Thank you
Sure.
for all of your comments coming in. I love to see it. Let's go into
Let's
HIMS. This
talk
is one of
about
the.
him.
Let's talk about HIMS. I've got the chart ready whenever you are, Chris. We've
Sure.
talked about this company on the channel before. There seems to be some movement on the stock today, though. Not in the good news for HIMS anyway.
Yeah, so him stock is having had a bad day today, and the reason for that is news came out that Novo Nordisk's actually, wow, the stock was really down today. I didn't realize it dropped that much. It's down 34% today. So the news today is that Novo Nordisk is cutting their ties with Hims and Hers, which means that Hims and Hers will no longer be able to sell the weight loss drug Wegovy, the GLP-1. Apparently, Novo Nordisk was concerned that Hims and Hers was not following standards that they had set out, and so they felt that was endangering patient safety. There's really no way to spin that. The stock went up. The stock was soaring, in the last month and year to date. And one of the reasons why it was soaring was because of its partnership with Novo Nordisk. And now it's lost that. So it's kind of like what comes up is going down. It's going down about as hard as it did then. It'll be interesting. It ended today right around what looks like might be a level of support. If it loses that, it could be going down into the 30s. We'll have to wait and see. But a bad day, and that's what you're going to get with a stock like Hims and Hers that just has had a remarkable year and had a remarkable year to date. But it doesn't take much to see a stock like this go down fairly hard. Again, this is it would be considered a mid-cap company. It was probably even, it still has a market cap of over $9 billion, but the stock had a meteoric rise, and news like this, it's going to send the stock plummeting.
Yeah, and that is definitely what we're seeing today. The question we have in the chat, though, and it's a great question, is now a time to buy the dip on HIMS, or is there further to fall? Because like you said, so much of the rise in this company was that tie to the GLP-1s. Right. Do you think this is a good dip buying opportunity, or maybe wait it out a little bit to see if there might be even further to fall?
Boy, this is where we need Thomas, right?
Yeah.
My hunch would be right now, investors are going to want to wait at least another 24 to 48 hours to see whether, again, where it ended today is right around a level of support that I'm seeing that might be around $40 a share or so. But you don't want to start being catch and falling knife, and you might want to wait a day or so to let this kind of play out and see where this ends up. I'm looking at the close. It looked like the selling volume is still pretty strong on this one. So, is it a buy the dip opportunity? Perhaps, but I think you're going to want to wait at least another 24 to 48 hours to see where this fleshes out. Having said that, the relative strength indicator shows it's in oversold territory, but this is a stock that's got over 30% short interest. So, again, that's just me. I'd probably say you're going to want to wait at least another 24 hours to see where this shakes out. Does this have further to fall? Even if it bounces up a little bit, you'll still have time to catch the rebound on the way out.
great advice and a look at hymns. Thanks for that.
Yep,
Mohawk had a question about another health stock since we're talking about health. I'll
sure.
pop it up really quick. This is maybe one you've not heard of before. This is, let me just get the chart pulled up. It is Nutex or Nutex Health, Nutex,
Mhm.
as the ticker. I've got it pulled up here. It's a physician-led healthcare services and operational company, hospital, real estate, population health management, whatever that is. But anyways, the stock has
Okay.
been doing really, really well. It looks like it's up almost 2,000% over the last year. Year-to-date performance, 267% up. 3-month performance up 100%. It looks like it's had a little bit of a drop in the last month or so, but this company has had a huge rise over the last year. Quite an interesting stock story. It does look like earlier on it's nowhere near its all-time high, although the chart looks a little different there for me when you look out at the 5-year. But in the
Yeah.
1-year history, this one's been really interesting. Is this one you've heard of before, Chris?
I haven't. I'm kind of getting a handle on it right now. So to me, one of the interesting things about this stock is it's playing into the area of physician-led healthcare services, which it's going to be a growing market. I know there have been a couple of there's been a group of physicians in my area that kind of went into a consortium together to do this. But I didn't realize that this was something that was becoming like into the publicly trading space. Interesting concept, because again, you're talking about you know you're talking about Americans are not just looking for healthcare services in general, but they're looking for access to affordable healthcare. This might really be a way of delivering that, because you're talking about micro hospitals, you're talking about, value-based care, uh, things like it's an interesting concept. I would have to dig into the stock a lot more to be able to talk about it more intelligently, but certainly the chart looks interesting because it's trading right around it shot up to what looks like its all-time high. No, not its all-time high, but it shot up to, let's see, over $175 a share, and it's come down quite a bit since then. But it looks like it's found some support there, and certainly an interesting stock, one I'd have to look at a lot more closely.
Yeah, again, and we're not giving the fullest analysis on this one, but
Right.
I think the really interesting thing when you look at the 52-week range of it, that's range being $4 up to $184, that's
Right.
quite the wide range for a stock
Sure.
in a short
Sure.
time.
Right. So here, just one other point on this, Bridget, just as I'm looking at this very quickly, I can see one of the reasons why investors are excited about it is because uh, in the last in the last 2 quarters, they have just actually, it's been probably going back about the last year. They've been killing the revenue on a year-over-year basis. In the quarter that just ended, the first quarter for 2025, they have they more than tripled their revenue from about 67 million to over 211 million. And now in the last 2 quarters, they've turned a profit. They weren't profitable before. So I can see why investors are excited about the stock. Unfortunately, I apologize, guys. I need to learn a little bit more about the stock, because this is exciting. This is a big deal.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that to our attention, Mohawk. That's an interesting
Thank
one.
you. Yeah.
All right, well, we're going to get to another stock that one of our viewers wants to hear about, and that is PATH, P-A-T-H. I've got the chart pulled up here just to talk about a little bit. Again, we're just cold looking at this, so no idea what it is. I'm going to read through just a little bit of the company description. It's a
Yeah.
software company specializing in robotic and
Right.
automation. So this is another robotic story. A smaller company, 6.5 billion, so maybe
Yeah.
more of that mid cap range. Have you heard of this one before, Chris?
I have, and I've I've liked this company before. I think right now, I think this was just a company that probably got a little out ahead of itself. It IPO'd back in, and actually I'd have to remember if it was an IPO or if it was a SPAC company, but it launched and it went public in 2021, and that was, unfortunately, the timing for it couldn't have been much worse, because That was right around the time when all tech stocks kind of tumbled, and it's been trying to find its footing. It looked like it got a little ahead of itself in 2024. Again, you're talking about a company that it is profitable, which is good, but revenue has been kind of inconsistent over the last, in terms of growing year over year. So that kind of explains the choppiness for the stock, especially when you've got a company that, again, it's a mid cap. It's not a small company, but I like where the company is positioned in terms of the robotic space, because I think this is an area that if investors have left it, I think it's an area where they're going to start coming back to.
Yeah, absolutely. Another interesting name in robotics we like to hear. I think that's a trend that we're going to keep hearing about for quite a while. It's not going away anytime soon. We've got a few more names here that people want to cover. Sure. Mohawk also had TGEN and VRT as some small caps to look at. So let's start with TGEN. Again, we're just kind of cold looking this up. Have you heard of either of those?
We were cold looking at this one. That is for sure.
Small cap names, of course, we wouldn't expect you guys to have heard of those before. So we're just going to dive in and see what is going up with that one today. I've got the chart pulled up. It looks like it's had a huge performance in the last year and 5 years. Year to date, up 400%, up 200% in 3 months. The chart, unfortunately, not working on MarketBeat. That stinks. It's hard to when you can't see the chart, but these kind of gains that you see, where you can see up 200% in 3 months, up 953% year to date. That seems to be a common story with these small penny stock type companies, right? You can see these kind of explosive.
21% today. Yeah.
So looking at,
go ahead.
Yeah, looking at just the company overview, it looks like it's manufacturers for multifamily, residential, commercial. This is actually kind of a good one to talk about leading into some discussions coming up this week. But it looks like it's potentially just like a housing manufacturing company.
It's a housing manufacturing company, but what they're doing is they're selling kind of the clean energy products that the businesses would need. It's kind of an interesting play on the clean energy market. I can see that, and certainly investors like it because it is a good stock. Again, I'm looking at the chart right now. Certainly got a catalyst today. It's been strong over the last month, certainly the last year. So this seems to be bucking the trend because a lot of clean energy stocks haven't been doing as well, but this one seems to be doing pretty well, right? I mean, this is pretty well. It's doing very well right now.
Yeah, phenomenal one. Thank you, Mohawk, for bringing that one up. That's a super interesting stock. I'm sorry, it's not much of an analysis because we don't have the whole chart to see, but Absolutely. I think it's a good transition for us, Chris, to talk a little bit about some of the data that's going to be coming out this week. I know we have some housing numbers coming out where new home sales and also just real estate home sales, I believe, as well. What can investors be looking ahead to this week?
Yeah, so new home sales came out, I think it was this morning, or maybe that was existing home sales, one of the two. Anyway, let me double check that so I don't tell people the wrong thing. So we had existing home sales came out today, and they came in a little bit on the positive side, which was bullish because they were expected to come in slightly negative. We're going to get new home sales on Wednesday. We're going to get durable orders on Thursday, and then we get the PCE on Friday. So there's a lot of economic data this week. And the PCE on Friday is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation. So that's going to be interesting because right now, the odds of the Fed lowering interest rates in July is still only around 30%. But if that number comes in support of where the CPI and the PPI have been, you might see that percentage go higher. So we'll see. The Fed seems determined that they're not going to be cutting anytime soon, and who's to say? But that will be one data point that they could see. Certainly, that's something for investors to keep their eye on this week. There's going to be a lot of economic data, and of course, I think we've talked about this before, Bridget. It's a headline-driven market, and we don't know what the headlines are going to be looking like vis-a-vis the United States and Iran and Israel over the next week. We don't know. You kind of have to just go day by day, because you really it's hard to make a prediction of what's going to happen right now. You just have to kind of go with the information that you know.
I think that's a really good point to kind of end our discussion on today, and that is just the uncertainty. I think this weekend really proved we don't know what's happening, and then today proved that we think we might know how the market's going to react to some of this news that's coming out, and then the market does the opposite of what everyone is thinking, and it actually ends the day up. And so I think that's where investors are kind of like, what? How do we even predict what's going on here? Where do we go? Is it really just take it day by day? I think that when you have so much geopolitical global uncertainty, I think this is kind of new waters for a lot of investors.
I agree with that. And I think depending on how old an investor is or how long they've been in the market, it's always unsettling to be in times like this. I have blessing or a curse, depending on how you look at it, of having gone through a few of these. I think the one thing that may have helped the market today, and I did hear some commentary about that yesterday, was you were just talking about uncertainty. And I think there was uncertainty heading into the weekend because the president had said sometime in the next 2 weeks. But that leaves a range of outcomes and a range of when that's going to happen. So the fact that it happened is now, that takes an uncertainty and it makes it a certainty. Now it introduces new uncertainties, but it's kind of okay, now we know that this happened, and the administration got out in front of this and said it was their intention that this was going to be a one and done. We're not intending to do anything else. We did what we said we were going to do. We did it. Now it's done. And as long as it stays that way, that uncertainties become a certainty, but we don't know. It's introduced some other wild cards into the mix. We'll have to see. I would, again, I'm not going to be the person that's going to spit out fear and doubt on this channel. I think basically, again, investors just have to go with what they know. And I think the market's basically telling you where you want to be putting your money right now. It's going to be cybersecurity. Yes. Energy, maybe not so much. You'd have to look it out, and drones.
That's right. Drones, anything defense related. I know I'm already looking to try and set up some interviews this week talking about some unique defense plays that might have some really good returns for investors. We know that that's going to continue to be an area where there's a lot of investment, not only in the US, but globally as well. So we're going to keep looking into some different interesting stocks. We'd love to hear your suggestions. It's great to hear from everybody of what you have on the table and what's going on for you. Thank you guys for watching and for the positive feedback. We love to hear from you that you enjoy these Monday lives. It's fun for us too. It's a lot of work, but we really do enjoy doing them. Chris, thank you so much for your time today. And thank you everybody for tuning in to watch today. If you're not a subscriber on the channel yet, we'd love to have you subscribe to join us for all of these lives that we do on Monday. Every Monday, we'll have MarketBeat Mondays here on the channel. And then whenever there's some major news events, maybe some big earnings, we're also going to try lives as well. And then, of course, we have our daily videos that we get out as well, including an update on Sunday for everyone, too. Thanks again for joining us, everyone. As always, happy investing.